What up, everybody? Hope you're having a good day. The sun isn't as far away as they tell us. Orphan trains are not a conspiracy, but they make you think. And what's going on with insane asylums? Let's get into it.
Look at that, y'all. That is the shadow. That right there is the shadow that the sun is making off the clouds. That dark spot right there. The sun is right there, y'all.
I hope you guys can see this. So, what do you guys think about a local sun? Like, I'm pretty sure that the sun is local based on a lot of these same kind of phenomenon that I've seen before. Haven't you ever just looked up in the sky and wondered why the rays come down at such a steep angle? If the thing is how many miles away, they should be the rays should be basically parallel even off of the cloud. Yeah, I know about perspective and things, but to me it seems pretty crazy how steep of an angle. If you point it back, it should be not too far away. And then what's the deal with these clouds here? I mean, like, how are you getting this phenomenon? I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid.
Is wicked. There's your sun behind the clouds. It can't do that at 93 million miles away, y'all. It can't. We have a local sun.
I think we have a local sun. I do think so.
Your proof. That is wicked.
I was doing some research on the New York City subway stations. And it's interesting because they said that the subway stations were founded in 1904 and they opened in 19...
Look at how beautiful these things are for supposedly some of the first subways in the United States. Let's ask ChatGPT. I think there was one other place that had subways. Yo, ChatGPT, where were the first subways in the United States?
The first subway in the United States was in Boston, Massachusetts. It opened in 1897 and was known as the Tremont Street Subway. This system was the first underground rapid transit in the country and laid the groundwork for public transit in American cities.
What about in New York?
New York. Their subway came a bit later, but really set the stage for what we think of today. The first line of the New York City subway opened in 1904. It ran from City Hall up to 145th Street in Manhattan. Once it got rolling, it became one of the largest subway systems in the world.
How long did it take them to build at first?
For New York's first subway line, it took about 4.5 years of construction. They started digging in 1900, and by October 1904, the first train was rolling out. Considering the scale and how new it all was, that was pretty impressive.
Dang, so you're telling me that this is just kind of rolled out? Because this stuff looks old. This looks like some older stuff once again. Just, I don't know, we say Tartaria. Just, I think this was here before. I think we found this stuff. I just don't think that we dug this out. I mean, we can dig. I get we can dig. I get that, but then decorate it like this? Why does it look like this? Why is this our first attempt? That's what I think is weird, is that this is our first attempt, or one of the first attempts. You know what I'm saying?
1905. So they were found, that's what founded means. They were found in 1904 and they opened 1 year later. They didn't build them. They just took ownership of these tunnels that are deep underneath New York City.
Look at those.
And it's interesting because when you look at all of these tunnels, you sit there and think, okay, you go up above on the street, you got horse and wagon and all this stuff roaming around, but you're building these massive tunnels cutting through the earth. Take a perfect example. Go outside, get a shovel, and see how far you can go in the earth. Especially in a time around the 1900s where it's very challenging to do that. There's no construction photos. There's just like 4 people standing in front of a tunnel saying that we built it. You would think if you did the first subway ever that people are blown away that they could go in, you'd have photos galore. But you only have one photo of 4 people standing in front of a tunnel saying that you found or founded the tunnels of New York City.
A lot of them just don't look new, and even some of those older photos and stuff like that too. I don't know. It's just a weird mystery. They just don't look like something that would be a first attempt. I know we've made tunnels before and whatever for different purposes, apparently all over the world, plenty of times. So we had this technology, or we knew about it, or I don't know. It looks too pretty. It looks too pretty. That's the thing.
The Statue of Liberty was not a gift from France. That is such a stupid story. Washington Monument, a 555-foot tall obelisk made of 36,000 stones, each one weighing more than my car, is not to remember
An obelisk, nonetheless.
Motherfucker named George Washington. All of these magnificent old structures and buildings we see around us have completely fictional stories attached to them. I believe that when people came to America, they found old world buildings that are just the same as the old world buildings in Europe, in Asia, all over the world. And yet that's not the history. So I think a couple hundred years ago, there used to be a more honest understanding of what the word founded meant. It meant founders keepers, that if you could go and stake a claim, you could have it. All of these old school world fairs, I think they were here to sell real estate. Immigrated to the New World, you could get a little stone palace to yourself if you could found it. And I think that's what happened here in this new world. I think people were turning the lights back on. All of this old tech that used to be around, people were firing it up. And people were pretty stoked about this new little founded nation of America. Tons of people were immigrating here from all over the world. And then I believe in the early 1900s, 1907, there was a reset. One is a...
The thing about this stuff too is, like, if we just rewind, this is I believe at the Chicago World's Fairs where this one of the World's Fairs is where this is. I'm not sure which one. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the World's Fairs in the United States here. So, like, the thing is, I'd be more comfortable with all these things that he said is not being true if these were not the buildings. These are such remarkable buildings. This is not a first building that you just put out there. Oh, I just got to this country. We just kind of chopped down some trees and we're just kind of, like half of the image that I'm painted of people coming over here are people on a boat with nothing but what they can carry. All they can, what they can carry on their backs. And these are the people that are, building these beautiful buildings once again, like, because they were built by slaves once again and prisoners and this and that and whatever. And they just whip this stuff together. Or workers, Where are our workers today? Where'd they go? What's the deal? Why can't we do this stuff today?
Were immigrating here from all over the world. And then I believe in the early 1900s, 1907, there was a reset. One as aggressive and intense as what flooded everything, why all these buildings are buried. I think that was 1,000 years ago. Almost 100 years ago, I think there was a mini reset. A lot of these fires, these great fires broke out about this time. And then we got World War I, Spanish influenza, Great Depression, World War II, and then all of our institutions are still around from then. So I think in the teens, 20s, 30s,
the thing about this too is just like, it's totally possible. It seems totally plausible in the sense that we are shuffling people around constantly all the time. We're changing borders constantly of countries. We're invading places. All this stuff is happening. People are going from one country to the other. This is still happening today. And we're like, oh no, this could never happen, where they're pushing people out over political anything or something else or whatever. And it just happens all the time, constantly now. So, I don't know.
There was a total dark ages going on. It's really hard to get any book published before 1935. Everything's been republished. Everything's been up.
Or just like fires and hurricanes and stuff like that, wiping out areas that, people want and are, for different reasons, they want to take over that land. And this stuff's been happening for a long time. It just continues to happen. We just see it now, and we're just told a different story. That's why it's like when listening to people say, "Well, it's a fact. We got a couple photographs and stuff." If you think you have a different idea, you should just keep your mouth closed if you don't have any scientific research behind it, because there's a couple documents, and you have to go through these documents, and that's all that anyone has to work with. It's like, no, we can use our brain too, and we can just kind of think what it would be like, or we can come to our own conclusions about things like world fairs or some of these buildings. Like I haven't seen, I don't know everything. And I think it's fair that I don't know how these buildings are made, and they seem to be pretty incredible, and they're old and they're standing around longer than the buildings that we have today. And a lot of them are still being used, and they're totally fine because a lot of them were built, with load-bearing walls so that we can just kind of change the inside of them, like a lot of downtown buildings and all this stuff. We could just kind of renovate the inside because it's all held up by the walls structurally.
Dated. If you've seen a bunch of the videos on my channel, you just see how much cover up there is. And people don't ask the most basic of questions, like how did these huge stone buildings get here? And we're told hammer and chisel people did it very easily. Wild West, they came here from nothing and built everything from scratch. Absolute horseshit, if you ask me. I think something much more nefarious has gone on here. I'm hoping we all just keep waking up to this fact so we can actually do something about it.
Between 8
Dude, it's so crazy. There's so much crazy stuff about that. Like, I'm on board with him with his overall arching ideas that there's been resets, that these buildings have been here before. That's about all I believe so far. I just don't think that, even if you just start doing the research in your own town. I've been looking at research in my hometown, and then I come across books about my hometown in Appleton, Wisconsin, where it has the first house that has electricity with light bulbs, that is, and stuff like that, and some weird things. And the dams are here making that hydroelectric power, but we were only here, our population only started off at maybe 4,000 people, 5,000 people in the 1850s or so, apparently. And that was enough to, reroute waterways and make dams and get enough stuff to make all this concrete and do all these things. It's just like, what really happened? Were we walking through the woods carrying canoes, or were we, maybe we were doing that, stumbling upon these buildings, is like, I guess what I'm saying.
1854 and 1929, over 250,000 orphan children were loaded onto trains and shipped
This is
west.
weird.
They called it the orphan train movement. The official story? Finding them loving homes. But here's what really happened. These children were placed on platforms in small towns, lined up, inspected like livestock. Farmers...
Have you guys ever even heard about this before? This is a real thing that went down. I'll ask ChatGPT, as our proof. Yo, ChatGPT, can you tell me a little bit about the orphan train phenomena in the late 1800s, early 1900s?
Sure. The orphan trains were a social experiment in the U.S. from about the 1850s to the 1920s. During that time, thousands of orphaned or homeless children from crowded eastern cities, mostly New York, were placed on trains and sent west to rural areas. The idea was to find them homes, often with families who needed extra help on farms. While some children found loving families, others were essentially taken in as labor. It's a complex chapter in history, mixing humanitarian intentions with tough realities.
The weirdest thing is it's totally true. You can look this stuff up. You can look at, there's some people, I've watched longer videos about some people who were apparently some of these orphans, old videotape of these people talking. And one of the older ladies is just like, oh, I guess I just never asked any questions, and I just kind of did what I was told, and I never questioned where I came from. I was just handed off, and we just did what we were told to do, and that's what we did. And I'm just like, whoa, like she just never questions these things. It's crazy. I don't know. I look a lot like my dad, especially with this mustache. You'd have a hard time saying that we're not related. So that's my biological proof.
And factory owners picked the ones they wanted. Not for family, for labor. The timing, right after the asylum.
There was also about 250,000 of these children, 250,000. And like they said, mostly from New York. And that's crazy. what are you talking about at that time that we just have all these wandering kids that we just then send out? Like, who's comfortable with that? What are you talking about? Who's orphan children? What do you mean? I understand that people get rid of their children, do weird, messed up stuff, right? Okay, but like a lot of them that were just advertised and just pushed like baby for sale on the train. You know what I'm saying? Do you like the tall one? You want a hard-working one? Like what is going on?
Asylum purge, right when the West needed workers to build the new infrastructure. Roads, railways, farms, all the expansion happening during the alleged reset period. And these children, they had no memory of the old world. No parents to tell them what came before. Perfect for the new narrative. But not all of them adjusted. The ones who resisted, the ones who didn't fit the system, they were sent to reformatories. And those weren't schools. They were control facilities. Harsh discipline, isolation, breaking the ones who wouldn't comply. This wasn't charity. It was population replacement. Social engineering on a massive scale. They erased the adults who remembered, then they redistributed the children who didn't.
When you really look into it, because I always find it like super fascinating. So they're saying they're repopulating the United States with these kids. It's crazy. And I always wonder, why did so many people from so many different countries decide to come to the United States all at the same time? And they all had their different reasons. It's like a potato famine, or I get the religious persecution and some different things like that. But like a couple bad summers, and you're gonna pack your shit and go across the world to a place you've never seen before. Like, get the fuck out. Like, what are you talking about? And so many people did this. It's insane. Oh man, there's so much about the orphan trains that's so weird. So weird. Got to look into that more.
Have you ever wondered why the United States suddenly exploded with massive insane asylums between 1890 and 1930? We're talking huge, ornate buildings popping up everywhere like they were built over.
There are a lot of these beautiful buildings just like this. There's plenty in Wisconsin. It's crazy. Plenty of, also, I didn't say anything about it in that last video, talking about that last video, is orphan asylums too. So just so many asylums for kids, orphanariums and stuff like that. Why are there all these orphanariums and orphanages all over the place? There is a insane asylum that in my town in Appleton, Wisconsin, that stopped being used as an insane asylum in 1960s, I think. 1960s, when pharmaceuticals started coming around, is when they started ending the insane asylums, pharmaceuticals. But what was I going to say about that? That building is now a retirement home, and you can still see it today, so it's pretty crazy.
Night. Official story, immigration.
Beautiful buildings.
New moral treatment ideas, but dig deeper, and it feels off like, what if there was a reset? A hidden cataclysm, some call it a mud flood or lost civilization wipeout, and the survivors who remember too much got silenced.
Okay, remember, so why are we building these insane asylums already anyways, in any sort of fashion? Like, what? That doesn't make sense. So we move here to be free. We move to the United States to be free, and then we come here and we create all these insane asylums where we put a pretty large amount of the population in these insane asylums. How many insane asylums do you need? Why are you making these crazy, beautiful, insane asylums when we come over here to put the insane? Like, what are you talking about? The whole story doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. And then another thing you'll realize is that a lot of hospitals, and especially the older hospitals in your area, there's a couple of hospitals in my area that used to be, hospitals used to not always be for, I don't think they were always just for medical reasons. Were hospitals as we know them today always like they are today, or were they used for different purposes?
Hospitals have changed a lot over the centuries. In ancient times and through the medieval period, many hospitals were more like charitable institutions. They were often run by religious groups, and care might focus more on offering shelter and spiritual support than medical treatment as we think of it now.
What about insane asylums?
Asylums historically were often grim places. In the 18th and 19th centuries, they were primarily meant to confine people deemed mentally ill or deviant, with little understanding of treatment. Some aimed for moral care, structured routines, order, but many became overcrowded and harsh. Eventually, by the mid-20th century, reform movements and new treatments led to the shift toward modern psychiatric hospitals and outpatient care.
Can you tell me the reasons why someone would be put in an asylum?
In the past, reasons could be quite broad and often unfair. Some genuinely struggled with mental illnesses that weren't understood, like schizophrenia or severe depression. But other times, people were institutionalized for reasons that today would be seen as social control. Things like alcoholism, hysteria, being nonconforming, or even just being difficult for families to manage. Women, in particular, could be sent away for defying societal norms. It was a mix of misunderstood health issues and societal prejudices.
I forget where it is, but there's some specific list that I've come across before of different reasons that you can be put in an insane asylum, and it was like they were like reading a book, having a belief, looking at someone the wrong way, being associated with the wrong crowd. Like, it was just nuts. Anything, just throw them in.
Back then, you didn't need to be crazy to end up locked away. All it took was asking too many questions, a broken heart, jealousy, being an alcoholic, or being a wife who didn't clean house or spoke her mind. Families or husbands could commit you with almost...
Then again, that's pretty insane of women not to just, do everything that men tell them to at all times. We all agree with that.
No proof, no trial, no escape. Thousands vanished into these places, right when history says society was reset and rebuilt. So were they really insane or just inconvenient to the new narrative?
Well, if it's insane if you're not following the narrative, you gotta be insane if you're not following the narrative they tell you. Because, that's just ridiculous otherwise. But that's all the video I got for you today. I hope you guys like it. Like and subscribe if you did, and leave some comments below. You'll probably be the only one that is commenting so far. So the stage is yours. Enjoy the day, and I'll see you tomorrow.